welcome to the KTMusic podcast. This is episode 4, a conversation with Nathaniel White, also known as Tokiejoestar. So, let's get things rolling here.
I'm Kaden.
And I'm Nathaniel, otherwise known as Tokiejoestar. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, we'll start this off. Do you want to explain your name, Tokiejoestar?
Yeah, sure. So basically, a couple years ago, I started making some videos and TikToks and things like that, or roughly about the same time, speaking of dogs, that my dog passed away. And
Okay.
the dog's name was Tokie Joseph, which is short for Tolkien Joseph, which is super fancy sounding for a Shih Tzu.
So it's a short name of a short name?
Yeah, literally. So the way it worked was my family and I could never afford a dog or any kind of pet outside of like goldfish, and I always wanted a puppy, but there's no way I could possibly ever afford one with my dad being a pastor, not making too much money, just enough to kind of scrape by. My grandparents' neighbors got a little pet Shih Tzu they called Tokie. And they're like, well, look at this little puppy. And they're showing them to us. And we're like, wow, this is perfect because I'm allergic to most dogs, but Shih Tzus are hypoallergenic. So I was like, oh, this is amazing. So I went home that night and I was just praying hardcore, like, I really want a puppy. After a few weeks, we got a phone call from those neighbors saying we found out that, this is going to be a little bit more of a commitment than we were ready for.
Right.
So we have this puppy. Would you like him? And they just gave him to us for free.
It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's definitely a God thing. It's like one of those things that's just kind of works out for, for some reason. But he lived for 10 and a half years, and then he got really sick one day, just out of nowhere. And so we had to put him down. Just kind of like an autoimmune thing or like a bug or virus. We don't know exactly what it was, but it was super sad, and it happened on Valentine's Day. So I was ruined Valentine's Day for me. But roughly that time I'd been on TikTok for about a year and a half. I had grown an account just doing weird memes and things like that back around 2018. And, so I made a new account just to start fresh, just leaving behind 60,000 followers or whatever.
Right.
And, being like, let's just start over. And I called the account Tokiejoestar, combining a little memory of my puppy, his name Tokie Joe,
Right.
with Joestar, Jonathan Joestar, the JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. So a little bit of an anime reference and
Very, very
an
classic.
homage to my dog.
So, before we dive in, you do a lot of things.
I do too many things.
A lot of things. So, for those of you who don't know, Nathaniel does handpan. He does. Why don't you go ahead and list some of the stuff that you do? Because there's more than
I play handpan, which is an interesting percussion instrument, steel drum. I play a bunch of stringed instruments: guitar, ukulele, mandolin. Tried dulcimer. If it makes noise, I will pick it up and try it. A lot of random weird wind instruments. I have this ocarina with me.
Yeah. So to keep in mind here, we actually have, since this will be on Spotify, we have to describe everything. So
you're right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you want to go ahead and describe what a ocarina is,
Yeah. For
that
those
would
of
be
you who
awesome.
don't know, or were raised around people who are Nintendo nerds or geeks, an ocarina is a little sweet potato shaped kind of clay pot flute that exists in a bunch of different cultures. Kind of looks like a gun turned upside down. You've probably seen it without knowing it, but they have a very sweet and rich hollow tone to them. It's very warm and pleasant. They have a bunch of different varieties and versions from places around the world. It seems like most cultures will come to the point where they're like, hey, we have clay, and when we blow in it, it makes funny noises. They have... So eventually they just come to what we now know as an ocarina or ocarina. I'm not sure
I always pronounce it as ocarina, but I also was like,
I'm pretty sure I'm
European,
wrong. I know I'm in
so.
I am in the wrong here.
Here, let's look it up for fun.
Yeah, let's just make sure. You look it up and I'll play a little bit of the Clocktown theme because Nintendo music is not copyright worrying, so we're good. You gotta stop making faces, Kaden.
What's going on? I was just digging
They're
it.
like,
I was just digging it, bro. Hey, man.
Ocarina.
it's so close to like the middle ground of those.
Wait.
Ocarina.
Yeah, it's the same.
Ocarina. It's ok, not oak.
Both valid though.
Either way it works, but yeah,
Definitely
I
awesome.
just like the process of collecting strange instruments. I brought plenty with me today, but
Yeah, so we'll dig into those. So, what was your first experience with music that you can remember?
My dad had a guitar when I was a baby that he would use to sing to me every night. He wrote songs for me, and because I was the first child, I definitely got to spend the most time with my parents. So it was great. I still remember, I think it was maybe 2 or 3, but some of my earliest memories are just playing with him and his guitar. As a younger kid, maybe around like 5 or 6, my parents got me a drum set and some like first act instruments.
Oh yeah.
That we all kind of junked around on. And my mom was a voice and piano teacher at our church, so she would give piano lessons, and I picked up piano from her. And took some lessons for a while, got into it for a bit, and then just kind of stopped. But I have always had a really good ear for music, which is a blessing and a curse, because when you have a good ear, you're like, oh, yeah, no, I can figure this out, but then you don't end up working as hard as you probably could to practice.
I think this is interesting because I think we're all very similar in that boat, which it's just kind of fun.
Aside from Kaden, because I know he practices all the freaking time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, in the sense of having an ear.
Yeah.
It's definitely a strange thing to just have.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely.
You know what sounds good enough to build something.
And then when you
from.
talk to people who don't, you realize how much of a gift that is, and you're like, wait, not everyone just knows what's good.
A very nice
intuitive,
foundational relative pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you say that your dad and mom were a large influence on your music then?
Oh, absolutely. My dad.
In which ways?
I guess my dad would always, as a little baby, kind of make me parrot words, things like that, which just from like, can you do this, can you do that, and I'd parrot it back. And that positive reinforcement starts there as this kind of performance understanding of just like living day-to-day life, where it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's like, can you do this?
Right.
And no matter what I did, he was always happy or always pleased with it. And because of that kind of like interaction every day for hours a day, I started talking at like 7 or 8 months.
Yeah.
It's just like full words, full sentences.
And then just haven't stopped since.
Never. Not once. I can't shut up. But yeah, I feel like that definitely played into music, because after 3rd grade, I was homeschooled. Just kind of the situations that we were living in at that time made it.
Were you in Ludington at that time?
No, not at all. So because my dad is a minister, I have moved around quite a bit. Not as, probably about as much as most people. But I grew up in Hastings, Michigan.
Where's that at?
Roughly like central Michigan area,
okay.
maybe a little bit
closer towards Kalamazoo.
Closer towards Grand Rapids.
Okay.
Like 30 minutes out from Grand Rapids.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit north or south. I don't quite remember. But was in public school there for just preschool to 2nd grade. Never did well in school. Always was too busy entertaining people to try and focus on learning anything. So when I was homeschooled, my mom had gone to school and had graduated from GVSU. After graduating from Mount Holyoke with a teaching degree in music, she like traveled to like Italy and spent a year abroad, like learning all kinds of stuff about music. And at one point was probably one of the better singers, specifically in the Mount Holyoke College. I'm not sure what it was, like women's collegiate choir or something like that. I'm not.
That's pretty cool.
But she was very talented soprano. So I just have a lot of like musical influence either from my mom or dad with, you know, my dad always interacting with me in a very musical way. My mom, literally being both a teacher. So she was able to give my sisters and I like an honest to, like decent education from home.
So are your sisters musically inclined as well?
Some of them, not all of them. All of them at least love singing. We always loved worship in church and things like that. My sister Jocelyn has been picking up ukulele and some like singing and things like that, just kind of in her spare time. I don't think any of them really do it too close to the kind of stuff I do. It's more just recreational, but it's definitely a part of their lives.
So, a couple questions. What would you say as a kid if you had to pick, in let's say around middle school, what would be 3 of your favorite either artists or albums from that time
That's
period?
the funny thing about me. I never listened to much outside of worship music.
Okay.
And so...
well, those count too.
Well, they do.
What were your favorite, or what was your favorite worship artist or songs?
For a while, it was a band called Sonic Flood. Because the main singer I had an opportunity to meet in person right after I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is another big part of my life. I know that we're mainly focusing on the music.
We'll touch on that. Yeah. We'll talk about that.
But right after I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, this mainstream singer, songwriter, artist that I looked up to, who made music I loved listening to, literally met with me and prayed with me and said, it sucks. It really does. But, God's got you through it. And he's still helping me with my Crohn's disease as well. So you got people looking out for you. And I was like, wow, this is super cool.
So he had Crohn's also?
Yes, and he was living as an adult on the road with Crohn's disease, talking about needing like NG tubing, which is the nightly tubing that you insert into your nose that goes into your stomach. That you would.
So for people who don't know, you want to just, and even me, I'm not fully educated.
Mm-hmm.
Describe what is Crohn's disease like?
So I have 2 autoimmune diseases. The one being Crohn's disease, the other being EOE. Crohn's disease is an autoimmune disorder of the digestive tract, specifically what's known as the ileocecal, this evil-sounding part of your digestion. It just causes a lot of like chronic pain and digestion-related issues, a lot of malabsorption and malnutrition. And for most people, editing their diet to avoid sugars and dairy or wheat or things like that, the things that their Crohn's disease happens to be sensitive to, and the proteins that cause them that kind of discomfort, tends to be enough. However, for those where it is not, their just immune system is cranked up to like an 11, just because of either a genetic like deficiency or in my case early like onset treatment, so like overabundance of antibiotics as a kid. It's been pretty well studied that like if you had a lot of ear infections as a kid and they just constantly treated you with antibiotics, they know now like you strip your child's gut of all the good healthy bacteria in addition to the unhealthy bacteria that are in your ears or throat or nose or whatever is causing the infection. You do that enough times and you just don't have any of the starter culture left that's strong enough to like as your immune system develops to keep you in a good place, and it creates this power vacuum that leads to these kind of disorders.
So you would definitely say, or how would you say that having Crohn's has affected you would you say that it's been a contributing factor to who you are now?
Oh, absolutely.
In what ways?
I guess the main way is just how I live my life with Crohn's disease and the additional one, which is EOE, which is a similar autoimmune disease that causes inflammation of the esophagus. They restrict your diet a lot, and growing up constantly getting sedated and going through food trials and things like that to kind of see what foods I could keep in my diet that I'd be okay with and what foods I couldn't really shaped my childhood. I was glad I was homeschooled at that point because otherwise I would not have done well without a flexible learning plan, because I was in and out of hospitals every 6 months or even sooner.
Wow.
with constant sedations and things like that and scopes, and it was rough. And I feel like that shaped two things. One, just my personality with regards to illness. Just like I'm a very empathetic person with the kind of stuff that people have to go through. I've always loved using my talents for like entertainment for kids who are in the hospital or having to go
Right.
through things like that. I had a few friends that passed away that I was able to visit and help the families of during that period of time. A friend of mine named Braylon, who only lived to be 4 years old.
Wow.
He would have been 13 or 14 now.
Oh my gosh.
He had a mitochondrial disease.
Oh, those are nasty.
The cells just don't have enough energy to keep you going.
Yeah, no kidding.
So being able to have that perspective, knowing exactly what it's like to go through it, I feel like has shaped me as a person and the way that I approach creativity and music. Just because it's
Right.
just an integral part of who you are. It's how you live your day-to-day life. And it's a lot more alienating the more you try and live with people who don't have that issue. It's just like, hey, we're going to go do this, ABC. We're going to go,
Right.
get food here. We're going to go, we'd like to cook
Yeah,
you a
no
meal.
kidding.
We were just talking about it before
Yeah.
the podcast. Like, hey, would you like, we could cook you up something. I was like, no. Let's,
Just too
I don't,
hard. Just
I
too
don't want
hard,
to
or-
put people out. And that's half of the issue because I know people mean well. It's
Yeah,
just like,
and you can't drink, can you?
I've tried some alcohols that fit all the criteria of my my other like dietary restrictions. There are very few alcohols that like.
Yeah, so what is that restriction? Like, what's the specifications for it?
So with my EOE, no milk, eggs, wheat, soy, corn, most
Dang.
grain, nuts.
There goes my diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
There goes my diet. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And there's like 16 other like random foods and spices in there. Some of them are completely undiagnosed that we don't know, that I still have in my diet that still cause me discomfort. We just can't pinpoint them. So it's
Is it like weird, certain specific little things sometimes? Like a weird coloring or...
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. weird.
Everything I've told you is what we've been able to prove through
Right.
like 10 or 11 years of like
That's hard to
constant
figure out,
scoping.
that kind of stuff.
I was
Wow.
watching a video the other day that made me feel really uncomfortable about like all of the procedures I've been through because it was talking about like 2 brain scans, one that has never been through general anesthesia and another which has, and it's just like you can see the brain damage and they're like it's comparable to like years of alcoholism or
I think thankfully though, like when you're when it comes to brain damage, I've known a lot of people who have had different forms of it. I think thankfully that when the fact that your brain is plastic, you're able to push through that. You know what I mean? There have been people that have lost
specifically
like half their
in
brains.
development if you're in
Yeah.
your developmental stages and it's not like
Definitely.
long periods of anesthesia.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah. Well, how was the longest that you've been under?
I had my G tube inserted. So there was a time when I was failing to thrive, and I had the NG tubing, which is typical for people with Crohn's disease who have malnourishment issues, will pump formula through a tube that goes from their nose into their stomach, so that while they sleep, they're technically still digesting immediately into the stomach food, so that they can keep up their caloric intake. And remain healthy, and that's how some people eat. They just eat all night long.
That's something.
And then some people just don't eat, and so they just do that to live. They just, shove a wire down their nose into their stomach, and then they eat all night long. They wake up feeling, relatively tired because you're still digesting all of that easily
Yeah.
digestible food in your sleep. And then you go about your day and you just don't eat food like a normal human. So
That's strange.
and I lived that way for a while. But
What was that like? I mean, eating is such a, especially. I mean, I've looking at European cultures and different cultures. America especially has a very big social element to food.
Mhm.
Yes,
Like,
it
I mean,
does.
you meet someone, and some of the first things you'll talk about is, oh, like what kind of food do you like? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so what was
Let's go out to eat sometime.
Yeah, like what's your favorite restaurant? I mean, that probably had some effect on social life.
Dude, yeah.
Not having food during the day. When
Mhm.
was that? Like, how old were you?
I was a teenager, yeah.
Yeah, what was that like? Do you have any interesting stories about not eating?
Well, like I was saying, the NG tubing did not work for me.
Oh, okay.
So I could not every night get that wire down my throat. My gag reflex was too strong. Every
Oh.
time I'd try, then the wire would go in, then out my mouth.
Oh, man.
Oh,
And
dang.
it just just thinking about it makes me sick. I couldn't do it. They would send
Yeah, I
people
bet.
like nurses to your home to try and teach you how to do it. I would always vomit. And
Yeah.
so eventually they said, well, what we'll do is we'll put one that's a little bit more durable that we will sedate you to replace once a month. And so
Okay.
you'll just have to live with this tape right here. And this tube that will always be seen. Like if you open your mouth, you'll see a tube going down there. And whenever you swallow, you'll always feel a little like wire
A little something.
right there.
How long
And
did you have that for?
About 3 hours after the procedure, then I vomited. So they put me under and they got it in, and then it just didn't work. So here I was waiting for a nurse, like a wire, just going, can someone please take this out of me? It was awful.
Man.
So they gave me a G-tube instead, which is a direct port to your stomach wall. And I had that for quite a few years. And because of it, I was able to grow. Because I was
That's
like
good.
13 years old and I weighed under 80 pounds.
Wow.
And I was short.
That's crazy.
And so I was able, thanks to that G-tube every night. It sucked because for two things, the scar tissue around my stomach wall where it has healed up since, I don't feel hungry anymore. I know I need to keep eating, but the kind of hunger I feel is I just feel like a tugging on the back of my scar tissue towards my stomach wall. So when I'm really hungry, you'll see my scar do this.
That's
move.
weird.
It feels tight.
That's really interesting.
But where it used to be, you just had a hole in your stomach that you would keep bundled up pretty well. And there was just this little pipe that had a little button on it that you could open, and it would go straight into your stomach contents.
It's like Dune. Have you seen Dune?
I have seen Dune.
It's like Dune with the heart plugs.
Yeah.
But do you have any examples of the impact that had in your social life of like not eating? Like
It didn't
that
change
not
that
much?
much. It's
No.
just like that wasn't a part of what I could do. I would go to
Right.
those events anyway.
you just wouldn't eat, right?
So, what were the biggest things that you entertained yourself with? You were homeschooled, and you said you have this affinity to all these sorts of musical instruments.
Mhm.
I feel it seems to me that was a big escape for you.
I realize now how many things I have always done to entertain myself that have contributed to why I am successful doing the weird things I do.
Yeah.
Because it isn't a coincidence. Like, this kind of thing I don't think happens this, like, randomly to people. I feel like there needs to be a reason for it. When I was a younger kid, when I just only had, like, peanut allergies,
Sure.
which I've always had. But we always just thought, well, he's skinny, he's small, he has peanut allergies. I've had autoimmune issues the entire time. We just didn't know it up until a certain point. But I would go and take my dad's VHS camera. And this was the time when they had those little Neopets toys
Oh yeah.
in the McDonald's meals. And so I got a bunch of them. I collected them. And then I would do stop motion animation with them
Dude.
on my desk. And I told entire stories that would take like up to 3 tapes that I watch back on. It's like it would cut to me doing something like in the big world, and then it would go to like what they're doing, like Toy Story style, when I'm gone, and then them fighting and doing random stuff. And
Do you still have those tapes?
somewhere I
You
might
should
be able
find
to
those.
find
It'd be a good music video.
that would make a good music video. It's so embarrassing though. It's like 5-year-old me
I
like,
tried
I mean, it just means it's-
Minecraft channel, bro. I tried to start a Minecraft.
I had a gaming channel.
I'm not even.
I had a gaming channel
Yeah,
as
exactly.
well.
You know what I mean? There's so many.
Mhm.
There's so many things that I think from people like us that you can see from even the beginning.
yeah.
Yeah, I
There's
think
this
artists just
desire
have this
to-
quality to be genuine. They're like, I don't care if people are gonna make fun of me for doing this. I'm gonna do it regardless.
I always
Like-
did it for my own entertainment. first.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
I did. Like I doing it
It
for
was
me. I
always
don't
for-
care
when it's always
if
for
people are
you.
gonna like it.
When it's always for you, you have unlimited energy.
I just remembered something. When I was about 13, I made a series of videos called Triple M. I was like, this is
Triple M.
Hey guys, this is Nathaniel and this is Triple M. What's Triple M? It's music, it's magic, and mayhem.
Nice.
It's MMM. And I would do these videos. It was almost like a YouTube type thing, but I didn't have access to the internet at that point. The only
When is
access
this?
when I was 13. And so it doesn't exist on the internet because we didn't have internet up until like maybe 2011. So the first access on the internet I had was like playing Webkins.
Oh yes.
Webkins.
Yeah.
Looks like you found yourself a gem.
Oh god.
You can keep that gem for your collection, or I can buy it from you if you like. Let me see what I can offer. I see these all the time.
So how old are you now?
Me?
Yeah.
I just turned 24.
24. Okay, so yeah, Okay, I'm just trying to think because I played Webkins like 4 times.
Oh, dude, it was almost a daily thing for me. I'd go in and
I
check
was
my
Club
daily
Penguin.
stuff.
I played
Okay.
Club Penguin.
I was a Club Penguin, but I also dabbled in Webkins.
But I didn't play them much. I got on when my friend would be like, "Oh, hey, you need to get on." I'd be like, "Oh, okay." But I was mostly a World of Warcraft.
I,
Okay.
I
That
would-
was
I,
me.
my parents were very worried about exposing me to too much. So most of my internet exposure happened through the DSI Flipnote Hatena, which was you remember that? Remember
I
It was
do.
that was
That
the
brings
best.
back memories.
That was like the original Vine for me because I didn't have Vine when
All the
Vine was
little
popular.
animations
All the
and stuff.
animations and all the
Those
like
were
la 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 la.
whatever
la,
happened to
la.
all those. I wonder.
They most of them have been archived. There was
They're
a
available
3DS
somewhere, though?
Flipnote Hatena that popped up. That was a 3D one for the 3D screen
Yeah.
that would let you do multiple layers of your animation. And there are still people who use the platform or
It
at
was
least the
cool.
animation to do animations that they export. But a lot of the animators that we see on YouTube today came from like that creative time.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. So hey, not to change this topic here, but we're about halfway through the podcast.
Okay.
I wanted to just ask you a series of questions here. So the first one is, what would you say your favorite color is?
I am very partial to kind of like a grayish blue, kind of like the mid tint sky gradient. And when it's not that, when I'm wearing clothes, it's either a burgundy or the kind of like this dark navy,
Right.
or kind of just like a creamy off white, like a chair.
Earthy.
Yeah, I guess.
Like your shoes.
Yeah, like my shoes. Exactly. I'm wearing it. Hold on.
Right.
These
Yeah, get 'em up
these
there.
colors, folks. For anyone watching, for everyone else, I'm holding my shoe towards the camera.
Yeah. What are the shoe? What are they called?
Oh, I got these at the thrift store. These are
They look good.
96 Reeboks. I don't
Nice.
quite remember the exact name. They looked a lot better a while ago.
Watch as the price spikes. I think worn shoes look much better to me. I don't
Yeah.
like people walking around in the brand new flash ones.
yeah.
I like a pair of worn
Yeah,
shoes.
no, these are from 96, and I
Not
copped
bad.
them, and they were the exact size I needed.
So you obviously have a lot of instruments. What would you say if you had to pick top 3 instruments? What would you say your top favorite 3 are?
Handpan,
Of course.
1. I'd probably say ukulele 2, and 3. That's a hard one. I think the third would be. Is there a camera problem?
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you
keep going. Okay. Yeah. For the third one, probably some form of flute. I like wind instruments, specifically like multi-chambered wind instruments. Sound really cool. They're very meditative. I like the way that they sound.
Yeah. Okay. So another one. Right now.
What is one failure that has ultimately turned out to become a success for you? Failure can be something less weighty than the word failure. You know, it can be something that's like, I tried this. And
Honestly, I can say music thus far.
so
The way that it ended up working for me is I started making music like on GarageBand when I was still out at West Shore Community College, where I met both of you.
I do remember that.
And those beats were not bad, but I really didn't know anything else about like how to use a DAW or how to record music or how to mix or master. I was just messing around. And then I met you guys and I was like, well, this is a very different way of looking at things. And you'd been doing, Ableton and stuff like that most of your life. So I was just over here like, wow, this is very different than anything I understand. And I got into it. And because of my little TikTok fame popping off just from me being myself on the internet and just allowing people to see who that person was and not being afraid of it, I made a lot of friends. And a lot of those friends were very famous and I didn't know it. And because of those connections, I've had like phone calls with some of the biggest people in the industry that to this day I don't believe that I've been able to talk to. I had a phone call with Billie Eilish and Clairo and one male guy I don't quite remember the name of. He's some rapper from Freddie Dredd, my buddy
okay.
Freddie, and Lil Darky, a few other people in the current rap scene that have DM'd me like, yo man, love your handpan stuff, dude. It's like,
What were some things that you saw in common between all of them?
between all the people that saw me,
Or that you came into contact with.
all of them had the social media in common. They were themselves first, and then the platforms that they posted on became something, not because they were pushing too hard, not because they had anything to do with the industry. Freddie literally started making rap music about Judge Judy, like how he wanted to bang her. That was his first song.
I think I've heard that.
Yeah. And now he is, a huge viral success. You hear his music everywhere, and he never promoted it because it just has that aesthetic to it that fit so well with the beginning of the platform that became TikTok. And now that platform runs the industry. And the fact that, I have 1 million followers on it doesn't mean much anymore, because back when I first got on it, having 100,000 followers got you verified just because we didn't have too many people on the platform. And now you can get 1 million followers from a single video just because we have so many people on the platform.
Yeah, it is actually quite,
it's crazy.
It's something to think about, because, think about 1 million people. That's a lot of people.
But, but aren't there about, I think, 350 million or so in America?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're like 300th of America follows you,
I'm a
which is strange
internet
to
celebrity.
think about, like, because you can only really know so many people, which kind of leads me to my next question. Like, obviously, people like Aphex Twin and there are a lot of people who believe that it's good, not good or bad, but that live their life by keeping themselves off social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I don't really have a belief either way. I think it goes with your personality. I don't really know. But what would you say what would you say some of the biggest negative effects that having so many people see you all the time has affected your life?
Well, to be quite frank and honest about it, because I'd prefer to be honest than try to, talk up about like the positives of it. TikTok itself is a cultural cancer. Like, as much as it has provided me opportunity, I can't pretend that it isn't incredibly negative for our generation. It is the most streamlined form of what social media is, and in that, it provides, yes, the greatest opportunity, but also the greatest danger, not just to like young children, but like that thing is a dopamine machine. So
it's like Pingu on repeat for 3 hours.
Yeah,
it is.
And so I think that if I could do it again, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because
would you say that when it started happening, it almost like it felt like it got out of control and just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger?
No, not at all. It started very, very differently than any other social media platform I've ever been on, which is why I loved it. Because the people that were being disenfranchised on the platform, what was Musical.ly, were the people that were making the kind of posts about their hobbies and their strange Tumblr-like fixations and the things that made them kind of the internet cringe culture that has always kind of existed since the early 2000s. And they were the predominant crew that were on that platform. That was what was left of the user base before it was bought out by ByteDance. Yeah. ByteDance buys it, they do a rebrand, and then memes start getting made by trolls, and I was one of them. And I loved every moment of it, because we would go on and we would invade these communities and just literally just mock them. They're just like, this is really stupid, and you guys take yourselves too seriously. You guys need to stop that, because we're having fun making fun of how seriously do you take it. And they would make like posts back at us like, we are marching to get rid of the new bullies of TikTok. And there would be like an entire duet chain of 100 people in black and white cosplay, like middle-aged people in furry cosplay and stuff. Yeah,
I remember you showed
and they were
me
like,
those
boom,
things.
Oh, we are against bullying. It's like, no, you guys are against literally 13-year-old white boys going, you guys suck. It was amazing. It was the best time ever. It was also the best of times and the worst of times, because it needed to happen so that the user base could feel free. And it worked, the amount of like sub communities it created in the meme culture of that time created some of the most innovative and creative jokes that would become the foundation for how a TikTok becomes a TikTok for the
Definitely.
future.
It created a new format.
It's a new format completely.
So, what would you say that some of your? I mean, we kind of talked a bit, and this is kind of changing subject a bit, but in the past, a little bit ago, we kind of talked about how you didn't listen to much music growing up. Other
Right.
than, what would you say? I mean, Caden kind of is in a similar boat because he didn't listen to a ton of stuff. And what would you say? Was there a moment or a part in your life where you think that your taste in music expanded? Because now I
would
know
say
you listen to a lot of stuff.
Right now is the portion of that story as it unfolds.
Where do you think that started? Like where you really started experiencing other forms of music?
Probably right about the time I met you guys would be then, because I wanted to make more music and you guys were telling me about stuff that you enjoyed that was so foreign to me. I didn't
Yeah.
understand it. I was like, who is this Aphex Twin guy?
Yeah.
And so I listened to it and I was like, well, this definitely makes my brain happy. It's weird because I don't feel like there's much of a purpose to it, and it was a new artistic like way of expressing music I wasn't comfortable with. I was just like, this isn't classical. This isn't
Aphex
anything.
Twin isn't worshiping anything.
Yeah.
No,
He's
definitely.
not
Yeah.
worshiping anything.
Anything but himself.
Well,
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
But
The
that's
process,
music in a
whatever.
nutshell. But like it was new to me. And so branching out into that, the first thing I did was what anyone else does when they discover they don't know enough about music, is they just adapt someone else's tastes. And just like,
Sure.
Tommy listens to this, I'll probably listen to it.
I mean, I can't say that I didn't. I mean, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a really good thing because I met a lot of people who they have their taste and they're just like, no. Like I know so many people who would, especially with like gospel music, because that's like, this is the only good music.
Yeah.
And they're just not open to anything else. And I think
Actually, to be fair, what before I forget, what really got me into electronic music was EDM, like Monster Cat, early 2012 into 2013.
super accessible.
Oh, very accessible.
I think that's. I mean, I don't hate accessible music, bless you, by any means, and I think that's its good place. I think accessible music is good as a gateway for people who haven't yet, because like obviously you can't show someone
and it
who's
needs to exist because
Yeah.
it serves such a vital purpose.
I think anywhere along the rung, whether
Yeah,
you
definitely.
start or you stop, just having music that you enjoy is fine, and you don't have to go. I mean, just because you listen to one artist doesn't mean you have to listen to, because you can spend a whole lifetime listening to music. You will not uncover every artist and listen to every.
No, I
album.
mean, Caden shows me new music. I
Yeah,
show Caden new music. I show
exactly.
Nathaniel new music. And I find new music almost every day. And I also actively search for it, but like, there's just so much available.
There
Yeah.
is.
What would you say that, I mean, these days, some of your biggest influences musically are like artists that you are like, yeah, I'd like to make or do stuff similar to these guys, alive or dead?
Most of the people that I kind of am influenced by are those that are in my immediate peer group when it comes to music. I will listen to their stuff, and I find it very entertaining to immediately adapt my style to whatever it is they do. I've always done that socially.
Yeah, definitely.
And part of that comes from, the ADHD or whatever else, but like being raised in a very like performative way, where as a pastor's kid, it feels like you have a lot of expectations from outside sources that act as mainly an audience into your life. A lot of them know a lot more things than you would like them to know, just because
Right.
you're in a very public position where your father is a leader, and his success is your success.
Definitely.
And so when people see that outside perspective, or maybe if they haven't really seen what it's like to be in a religious background, it's not bad as much as it has the potential to be a little bit more open than you would like.
Right.
And you feel like that lack of privacy, but I grew accustomed to that, and in that, in my later teenage years when TikTok happened, it made me seek it out, because I thought, well, if I can find that external accountability, those people who care about me even though I don't necessarily know who they are, that kind of interaction has been modeled for me most of my life.
Right.
And so it felt very natural to fall into, where now I have all these people that look at me. And so I find the people like that. The people like Freddie and these other musicians from TikTok who just make what they want and then post about it and people suddenly care, because we are genuine enough to know that, you know, the people that we portray online are not us, but the people that, you know, we are tend to just attract those who want that entertainment, who are seeking for that person to attach to. A lot of my friends that I have now from the internet are people who literally just saw me and thought, that's someone I want to hang out with.
Yeah.
And then spent enough time to, like, you know, post on every single video or every comment section or come to my Discord server until we are actually friends in person.
Yeah. I mean, this is your chance to obviously rope people in. What's your Discord? Where can people find access to your Discord?
I'm currently getting it
give some promotions
revamped.
here. Okay.
But I have all of my social media links available on my Linktree, which is Linktree/Tokiejoestar.
There you go,
all
Linktree.
of my-
I'll put that in the description.
Yeah,
So.
all of my social medias are pretty well branded under that name. So just look up Tokiejoestar
Should
on
pop up.
anything, and it will probably pop up. And
Cool.
yeah,
Where
So,
do you see yourself in 5 years?
that actually I have a perfect example.
Win a time machine and you take a
Yeah.
picture.
No, actually.
Great.
I have a pretty good understanding of what the next 5 years are going to look like, I think. It's one of two things. Either I am going to... Are you taking a picture?
Yeah.
Either I'm going to continue on the path of making music and releasing it and kind of figuring out just what it's like to live as an artist, not really caring as much as I did in my like 18s to 20s about like whether or not it's perfect, because that perfectionist tendency that I have has, you know, crippled a lot more than it's helped. Because
definitely.
you guys have released music, and the music that I've released is like one song so far. That is, you know, it's not a small accomplishment. It's done very well, but like the only reason that
What is it, by the way?
yeah, it's a song called Buzzkill, which was a remix that was a contest from my friend Mathika. She posted, and the day she posted, I uploaded a verse on TikTok, and it won a contest.
We recorded that at my studio,
And
didn't
we
we?
recorded it at your
Yeah.
studio, yeah.
So people who aren't aware, me and Nathaniel have been, I mean, I guess you could call it in the process of making a release for about, 2 years? On and off?
Well, like the first time
with
we started
Melted.
recording was 2016.
Really?
Yeah, we were in your shed in 2016 making music, and then
It was 2016?
it was 2016.
Holy
Is it-
smokes.
I mean, you met each other at West Shore, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I met you at the haunted house.
That's right. I showed up at some random people's haunted
He was
house with a
dressed up
no-face
as
costume.
No-Face.
Yeah, I
He's
did.
dressed up as No Face and he walks around. For people who don't know, No Face is just this like
Studio
it's-
Ghibli
it's-
character.
Yeah, it's but it's just this gaunt, you know,
Black
ghastly-
form with
Yeah.
a big white
it's
mask.
a black
He
form.
starts
with-
eating people.
yeah, and then later in the movie, just starts eating people voraciously. But
Yeah,
it's like
good movie. Watch it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah,
Obviously,
I
watch
was
all of their
following
movies.
you and the rest of the Boy Scouts
you,
around.
when you had, I hadn't even seen the movie when you had.
You were just like, what the
I
hell?
was just like, what the heck? Exactly. So, and then you started doing magic tricks later, and
You see, that's the thing. Wherever I go, and this happened right after I got out of high school, wherever I would go, I was entertaining.
Yeah.
I've always been doing that. Either it's I do magic tricks. I'm always looking for people's approval, which is why TikTok was a good and bad thing for me. Because in seeking for approval, I built this very unhealthy relationship that I'm just now like starting to get away from and realize that like I can still have everything that I've built, but it needs to be treated differently so that
It has
I can
its
be
own
healthy.
place.
Yeah, it has its own place, and it's not everything to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the next 5 years, continuing off of that understanding, I will release a bunch of music I'm proud of. I will perform a bunch of places with people I care about. And whether or not it becomes a full-time career or something I continue to pursue as a hobby will depend on that success. I'm sure that the people that have supported me thus far would be more than happy for me to be in any town, anywhere, doing whatever.
Definitely.
And that's what I'm so thankful for, because a lot of this stuff just kind of happened to me. Like, you know, with the disease, you can't control it. It's just a lack of control. and it propagates with like TikTok. It's a lack of control, but it's continually putting yourself in a place where you are scrambling to find control where there isn't any, and that wears you down a lot. So I think that the healthiest thing to do would be to flip the paradigm and put myself in a place that has a lot of control where I don't need any, where I can control my environment and my settings and my emotions and my music exactly to the way I want it, but I don't need to worry about the expectation of those things. I've spent enough time in the first paradigm. I want to spend some time in the second, and I feel
where you're
like
deciding what to do.
exactly.
Yeah.
Where it's less that I need to formulate anything.
I mean, I think that's all. I mean, as far as I can speak, I think that's a very good end goal for most musicians. I mean, I feel like it's a natural progression. I mean, right now, I mean, for those who don't know me, I've been doing electronic music for a few years, and it definitely has grown into more of a space of I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna control as much as possible, and I mean, like I'm going into an electrician job, and I'm doing that because it allows me to keep doing whatever music stuff I want, not whatever music stuff I have to do. You know what I mean? So I mean, I think that's definitely a very smart and good mindset to go into. So I have a good question here. What would you say your biggest fear is these days?
The only thing I fear is eternity, which is a super like big brain thing to say, but like I have lived through enough weird like semi supernatural experiences that were this like a Ghost Hunters podcast, we would have had a much larger and more focused discussion on. But like, long story short, in college I affiliated myself with some people who are doing some very strange spiritual mumbo jumbo.
Elaborate a little bit more, because I don't think I've heard about this.
Oh, you have, but
I think maybe.
I've heard of things of that sort.
Oh, I think you've.
Yeah.
I've forgotten.
Yeah, just to explain it a little bit, going to college as this gung-ho Christian kid who wants to save all his friends because that's just what I want to do. I care about them, and I'm very green. I don't quite necessarily know what it's like to be in a public school perspective, and it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but I definitely got a reputation for it. And I eventually attracted the attention of a couple other people that were of the exact opposite faith, to the point where they are literal, like, either temple Satanists or practicing
Was this
witches.
when we met?
Yes, roughly about
When I was in the practice room every day? Okay.
Probably, about that time. And I became close friends with these people, and I got to know them very well. It's just the amount of darkness that they lived in their day-to-day lives that pushed them to the point where, in order to find control, it led them to this very different religious path than what I was typically, accustomed with, was interesting to me. So I spent a lot of time with them, and I realized just how, similar we were in the fact that we all struggled with things that really had changed us and put us in a position of no control. But Christianity, from my understanding, teaches that being in a position of no control is the right place, because it relies more on faith that God has you taken care of, and you live in that place as an act of worship.
Right.
Versus a more satanic or Wiccan or spiritual worldview where you decide you're going to take what control over the physical world you do have, either through rituals or through prayer or through whatever behavior it might be, witchcraft typically, to take the physical world around you and give it meaning. So even if you don't believe in
that actually sounds like a good thing.
And it is for a lot of people. I'm not saying that it isn't. It's just in the context of the relationships I had with these people, it created a lot of tension. just because they really wanted me to we wanted to help each other.
It almost feels like a blue team, red team sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where
I think I don't know. I can't
you're on
speak
two
enough because I don't
'cause
know enough about each
I'm not
one.
very educated either. Just from what you said and how you were talking about control, to me, my opinion, I think control is an illusion.
Yeah,
honestly.
definitely.
You know what I mean?
I think the older you get, and the
even,
more harder you work,
like
you realize
like cleaning
that.
your room, or like, you know, there's so many things that you can just say, oh, what's the point?
Exactly.
It's just
And
rearranging
it's always
things.
and it's always what you do about it. And even and you can go as far down the rabbit hole you want into your decisions, willpower, whatever. But control and faith, and you know, I think that they were just looking at, they weren't able to look past barriers.
Yeah.
And it's hard because I know that you weren't, and even if you had been public schooled, or I guess it's just hard to go because you didn't have relatives that were like, you didn't have a sister right next to you at West Shore, so it was probably hard for you to have a check.
It was
it's some
was
sort of accountability to what you were doing, and it's easy
Exactly.
for you to fall down into something when, like you said, you're gung-ho.
Yeah, and so what ended up happening was the amount that I wanted to help them through the way that I understood to give help, and the way that they tried to help me through how they understood how to give help, were from such different places of the understanding of like control of like over a situation. One, first of all, the concept that you need to be in control of your situation, because that's all they teach out at, you know, your first couple of years of college. It's like, if you're not in control of your life, you're coming here to get a career to control your future.
Yeah.
So you're coming here to experiment and all these other things, but the main thing that they're hammering home is, you know, for some of you, coming from a more public school background, it's probably more natural. But for someone who focused on the things that they were passionate about, and still, you know, learned everything that was necessary to get, you know, scholarships and good grades and things like that. As soon as those walls kind of fell away and I was less regimented with it, and I had all this opportunity, my ADHD just kicked in super hard.
I know what that's like.
Easy to go into extremes.
And I've always been a very black and white person. I've been, you know,
I think that's a tendency of ADHD, because I have ADHD.
It's either on or off. It's never like.
And then like when you need to clean, it's like, I'm not gonna clean. And when you do, it's like, I need to clean or I'm gonna die.
Purge. Yeah. And so
I know that feeling.
So it was that feeling, but like relationships wise, it was
relationships made it hard.
It blew itself out of proportion when, after the few like tenuous good relationships I had with people, where we just got to the point where we understood each other's differences, and we were, you know, this was the first time I really got to the place with people where it's like, you know what, we don't need to be on the same page to be there for each other in the ways that we can, and we can build those barriers and boundaries to become good friends. Those people I'm still friends with.
Yeah.
There were people that didn't for themselves understand that line, and we were not able to reach that.
Sure.
And as a result of that, it just built into animosity.
Yeah.
And in that animosity, they used what they knew to get away from me, or to try and hurt me because of how I had offended them, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I tried my best, you know, and even then I tried my best to live at peace with everyone, but sometimes that just doesn't work. And what ended up happening is, by the people that I interacted with, I just had more and more negative interactions with people from that viewpoint, to the point where it culminated in a very traumatic, demonic experience for me.
Damn.
And
so
that was bad.
Man. Jeez. Well, okay, we're in the last 5 minutes of the podcast. It goes fast.
Yeah,
it goes fast.
really does.
So, some of the things I wanted to talk about.
Wait, I have one question.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
And where would it be?
If I could have one gigantic,
Like everyone
Billboard.
saw this.
like
Cars
everyone saw this.
passing by.
Thousands
all
and
the
millions, billions of people would see this.
I think what I would have is I'm pretty sure of this. I would have I'd have a picture of a bunch of people standing in front of an empty stage, and on that stage a bunch of spotlights pointing to a single spot on the stage, and it would say, "We all know what's missing." And that'd be it.
It's a good one. And obviously your TikTok handle. And obviously your TikTok handle right underneath
Yeah,
it.
right
Yeah.
there. Yeah. in the bottom right hand corner.
It's Nathaniel.
So
That's a good one.
So that one, to me, that communicates, like, be there for yourself.
I didn't say that this was a stage I was going to be on.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
This is just
I
an
know
empty
I know.
stage with millions of people around it, and we all know what's missing. It's what's on that stage.
Right. Different to everyone.
Exactly. Well,
Like-
everyone
it's like
has
the
their own
brief- it's
opinion.
like the
Everyone
briefcase
has their
in
own
Pulp
opinion.
Fiction.
I'd like to go back to what I was just saying. Everyone has their own opinion on what should be up there.
Yeah. It's like the briefcase in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. So another thing, I always ask this for our guests, if you had to give one piece of advice that kind of, something you really wish you had known before you started getting all this attention, if you could tell yourself one thing, what would it be?
I would say, don't worry about what you don't know, but spend as much time as you can figuring out the bare necessities of what you need to do something new, to try something new. Whether that's music or art or whatever it is, put yourself in a situation where you don't know what's going to happen and go through every step of that process until it reaches a goal. That goal doesn't need to be your success. It needs to be you ending your first attempt at whatever it is. You need to set aside that much time for yourself and your personal development and your personal growth to try and do something to the end. Even if it goes nowhere, you are happy that you went on that journey with yourself. And if you are too worried about what that end goal is going to look like or the results of that goal, you're never going to start the journey.
Yeah.
And this is coming from someone who's starting that journey, who had the opportunity to start it, when I was 18 or 17 when I was hanging out with you. I didn't know anything. But now the things I do know that I have learned, unfortunately, through the School of Hard Knocks, have provided me the opportunity to, really give my one shot at what I really love doing and hopefully see where it takes me.
Yeah.
So
Very,
that's what I
very
would
good
suggest
advice.
for everyone.
Now you can look
That's
back.
powerful. That's a
yeah,
powerful message.
very good advice. And then we'll pretty much wrap things up here. But what are you currently working on? I mean,
Yeah.
if you give people an update, what can they expect from Nathaniel over the next few months?
Yeah, for like the last couple of years I've been on TikTok, I've been teasing a couple various songs that I've written that I wanted to get produced or released, but the one thing that we never mentioned in any of this is, like, I'm an artist, I am not a producer.
Yeah.
I've been told by a couple people I'm one of the most artistically creative people that they've met, but I have the worst work ethic because
I mean, we've had a song in production for 3 years.
yeah. And so, like, I don't blame anybody when it comes to those things, but just the situation that I surround myself with is I start a lot, but I finish very little. So there's a song called Nightmare that I went and got recorded. And that recording, I just got it back, and I realized, I don't like the direction this is going. So I'm going to go
That's always okay to start
yeah,
again.
I am.
You'll have to come do some more recording sessions at our studio then.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to need to, just because I can't always go and travel to my handpan friend Jeremy, who got me into playing handpan in the first place.
Yeah, shout out him and
Heavenly Blues on Spotify and all of his social medias. Heavenly Blues, but the B is a 3, so Heavenly 3
Lose.
lose.
There you go.
But yeah, he's the guy who got me into handpan at all. Met
Yeah.
him on the handpan forum back in 2015, and he got me my first tank drum that he gave to me, and since then has sold me sold me my first handpan, and has since then connected me with the rest of the community.
We've got a few minutes. Do you want to whip that handpan out?
Yeah.
Just to show people it. We literally have 1 minute left.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm sure we'll edit me walking over here, walking back.
Well, that bit's that. Yeah, I mean that stuff can stay in the podcast. So,
There you go.
So
yeah.
this one here was actually a handpan that was provided for me after I had an accident out on the break wall with one of my other instruments. These things are typically carried around on a backpack, and I slipped and fell on my back, bending one of the edges of my drum. So a very strong supporter of mine, his name is, he goes online as the name Ghost. I won't say his true name, but he is an investor, and he's really into crypto and things like that. And as a result, he literally bought this drum that you see here for his kids because he saw my videos, and he thought, hey, can you tell me the exact model of your drum? Because I would like to get the same one for my kids. And he bought it. And when he found out that mine was damaged and I wasn't able to record with it, he sent this one to me to borrow. He's given well over $4,000 to me in times of like when I really needed some help, either fixing a drum or just feeling like I had bills I needed to pay.
Sounds like a good guy.
He's one of my best buds on the internet, and I'm super glad for everything that he's been able to contribute.
Well, hey, give us a little demo of the handpan here, and we'll
this one
we'll fade out as
this one
as
right
you play.
Here is the handpan made by Mackay Handpans, tuned to the key of the Kurdish D, and here's a little tune on that.
All right. Well, that's about it. Thank you guys for tuning in to the KT Music Podcast. This was our 4th episode with Tokiejoestar, one of our close friends. Thank you very, very much for tuning in, and we will see you guys next Thursday. So, goodbye, everyone.
See you guys. Thanks for having me.
Adios. Thanks for coming.